What is liminality? Well, the word is derived from the root word liminal, which means occupying a position at or on both sides of a boundary or threshold. This word has been tossed around a lot and has recently become a tool in online storytelling, creepypastas, and the topic of this video, video games. Why do people take so much interest in liminal spaces though? What makes them so captivating? Well, the point of a liminal space is to invoke a sort of reminiscent, almost nostalgic feeling in the viewer of the image. We're associating memories with images that we've never seen before. Liminal spaces often utilize the vintage VHS aesthetic to further tap into the memories of the viewer, often making the blurry, poorly lit, hard to make out images that feel almost eerie in a sense. These images can also depict situations and hypotheticals that are almost but not quite true. This causes even more unsettling feelings in the average viewer. This eeriness is caused by the fact that the viewer is being denied information. Humans are naturally curious creatures, and we want to have the most knowledge possible in any given situation. Whenever something is preventing us from gaining this knowledge, it's unnerving on a naturalistic level. The lack of information is scary to our brains. The blurriness and unpredictability of these images causes our brains to recognize the surroundings, but only on a vague level, and it leaves our minds feeling lost and confused. This is where video game developers started to take notice. Hey guys, I'm Abtu, and welcome back to another episode on my channel. Today, I wanted to explore the concept of liminality and talk about how video games have played with the concept both intentionally and unintentionally in past. If you like the video, please like and subscribe and leave a hate comment. In the late 1990s to early 2000s, video game developers were just starting to play with the concept of liminality, Silent Hill being one of the most notable examples of this. Silent Hill is a horror game series that was developed by Konami in 1999 to 2014. The first game is set in an eerie and empty town called, well, Silent Hill. The entire town is surrounded by mist and the player's not offered an escape. Forced to explore their purgatory, the player begins to embark. They soon find that this seemingly once bustling town is now no longer occupied by its previous residents. The player is not alone, however. Silent Hill is home to a number of supernatural occurrences and dangers. The player is forced to make an endless loop of running and hiding in the town they may never be able to leave. Everything is so familiar, yet so foreign. Hospitals, streets, subways, theme parks, all settings that someone is familiar with. Yet, when placed in the setting of the game, they quickly become something to dread. The fear that comes from liminality can also be attributed to anticipation. The player is left anticipating something that could happen. One might find themselves thinking that maybe, when they open the next door or turn the next corner, that there will be someone, and yet they're met with desolation at every crevice. Another example of early liminality being displayed in games would have to be attributed to Portal. The game released from Valve in 2007 and once again played with the concept of liminality without entirely delving into the topic. The game forces the player into a testing facility. It instructs the player relatively legitimately that the main character's purpose is to simply act as a test subject for a new device that's being experimented with. And overall, the game really isn't that creepy so far. Then, the game shifts. The player realizes that the observation rooms are empty and no one is actually watching them. Eventually, it's discovered that all of the researchers in the facility have been killed long ago. GLaDOS killed them. GLaDOS implicitly had used some kind of toxin in order to end their lives and seize control of the facility. The loneliness apparent in the entire Portal game is eerie in a sense. The fact that the AI is obviously not on your side and there's no one to help you is obviously scary. While the game isn't based around liminal spaces, it certainly utilizes them effectively, isolating the player from the outside world and placing them in an unfavorable circumstance with no escape. The Backrooms is a fictional concept that originated on the internet in the form of a creepypasta. It describes an alternate reality or dimension that can be accessed through glitches or errors in reality. The Backrooms are described as a vast, maze-like network of interconnected rooms, hallways, and corridors, with walls and floors made of yellow-stained or even concrete-like material. The Backrooms are depicted as having a desolate or empty space, with no clear source of lights and an ever-present buzzing of fluorescent lights. The space seems to be infinite. There's no apparent way out. The Backrooms have become a popular topic in internet culture, and many people have created fan art, stories, and, well, games based on the concept. The infinite loneliness and purgatory that the Backrooms imply have always been intriguing to internet peoples. The Backrooms, after all, were the first extremely popular attempt at actual intentional representation of liminal spaces. The entire concept was designed to make you feel like you've been there before, like you've seen the image or location before, like you've already been through this. Obviously, the concept being so captivating, people wanted to put their own spin on things. People made fanfiction, forums, fan animations, and of course games on the eerie place. Some people tried to make the Backrooms more scary by adding monsters and creatures and new levels to the original material. I don't personally understand this notion, however, as the entire point of the Backrooms was a perpetual liminality, a place in between reality and nothingness, a place where somebody could wander for hours and accomplish nothing. Unlike Portal and Silent Hill, there's no resolution, no escape, no interactions, just nothing. This creepypasta is unique in a sense that the fear factor does not derive from some creature or scary thing, but rather the setting alone. This is what led to the Backrooms games. Some people tried replicating the stories of scary monsters and entities in the Backrooms, making games where you'd be chased through the Backrooms by hostile enemies for infinite amounts of time. Others made games that displayed their own liminal ideas, such as the game No Players Online. In this game, the player is made to walk around a video game lobby, waiting for other players to join, a common thing that many people have experienced. The game, however, is single player. No other players will ever join. The player is left anticipating something that will definitely never happen. My favorite Backroom games, though, are the ones that stayed true to the source material. The games where the player is truly lost in an infinite expanse of nothingness and is truly and utterly alone. There's a game on Steam called The Complex Found Footage that fits this criteria. The entire game takes place in a series of different settings where the player is completely left for themselves. Every location, every crevice, nook, or cranny is completely empty. As the player wanders, they're left to their own thoughts. No music, no sounds of other people, just the sounds of your own footsteps and your own mind's creations. I feel that this game, out of the dozen or so that I've played, and the hundreds that I've seen, is the best. It truly encompasses what makes the Backrooms so dreadful, so terrifyingly delightful. The game doesn't try to scare you with spooky music or cheap jump scares. It's just true, raw, unadulterated loneliness. One might find themselves anticipating some cheesy monster to pop up while playing the game, and I certainly did the first time I played, but the entire game is just nothing, because the Backrooms, at its core, is nothing. Granted, some people might find this thing to be pointless, pretentious even. Some people have said to me that they don't experience any range of emotions from these images, and that they don't understand why anyone would. That's okay. If you don't find liminal spaces scary or nostalgic, that's fine. Maybe people like those are the people who added all of the scary monsters to the Backrooms in the first place, to make it more scary. It's impossible to ignore, however, that liminal spaces do affect a lot of people, and just as many people have expressed that they found the scary monster version of the Backrooms terrifying, as people who have expressed that that interpretation of the Backrooms defeats the entire purpose of the concept to begin with. The sheer amount of people claiming that these images have made them feel reminiscent or even nostalgic is undeniable. There's some quality in these images and media that makes some people feel unnerved and intrigued. These places and locations were designed to be seen and consumed within a certain context and time. When places are ripped from their context, it makes them feel out of place and disorients the viewer, confuses them even. Without their purpose being fulfilled, these places become uncanny. A school should have children in it. A play place isn't meant to be empty. An office building isn't meant to be laid out this way. It fundamentally triggers our brain without us even realizing. Games that can utilize the backroom's liminality and loneliness to its full potential are empty, which is what makes them so good. Some games feel liminal not from the lack of people or living things entirely, but rather the feeling that some things you interact with are artificial. This is a common feeling in some games, particularly those with highly stylized or even abstract graphics. The artificiality of the game world can create a sense of detachment from reality, which can be unsettling or even disorienting for some players. In these types of games, the environment and objects may lack the detail and texture of real-world objects, making them feel flat or two-dimensional. The absence of living creatures or other signs of life can also contribute to the feeling of artificiality. However, the sense of artificiality can also be an intentional part of the game's design. Games that aim to create a surreal or even dreamlike atmosphere may intentionally use the abstract and stylized graphics to enhance the player's sense of disorientation and immersion in the game's world. One of the examples of the intentional use of something like this in a game design is aptly named Weird Dreams. Developed by Rainbird Software for the Atari, Weird Dreams, like the Backrooms games, places the player in a variety of similar yet slightly off situations. Settings that are ever so slightly different from what's usual. Settings that disorient the player. What makes these weird dreams so strange, though, is the fact that the game is entirely populated by odd, strange creatures that are seemingly based on literally nothing. When someone looks at these enemies and monsters, they don't immediately recognize what the hell they are, which can cause even more disorientation. Players are left at the end of the game with more questions than answers, which some might say makes the game bad, but I prefer to say that the game is intentionally trying its hardest to confuse the player more than anything. There's additionally another game on itch.io called Psycho Unstable Journey that fits within this criteria. The game places the player in notably less loony but still nonsensical situations and forces them to endure what happens. Throughout the game, there are multiple strange interactions that the player has with other quote-unquote people that give the impression that they're in some kind of simulation or nightmare. No one is acting normal, no one is being sane. The entire game makes no sense, and this causes it to feel lonely. Games like Weird Dreams and Psycho Unstable Journey are designed to be disorienting. They force the player into settings where barely anything makes sense and nothing follows logic. These games tend to be extra stressful because of this. Additionally, there are games that unintentionally have a similar effect. Games that feel lonely and existential because the player is put in a setting where everything feels artificial, but it isn't intentional by the game developers. Games like Hydroneer or Job Simulator, where the main objective of the game is for the player to carry out tasks and jobs, and therefore the interactions with NPCs don't really feel like there's much thought put into them if there even are NPCs. In Hydroneer, for example, there are no NPCs. There are implied to be people in the town by the signs labeling certain buildings, but no one is ever shown on screen. There are never any people to tend to their own shops, and instead you have to select, purchase, and move products by yourself. When you purchase land, you don't talk to anyone, you just click on a sign and buy the plot. This makes the game feel extremely artificial and slightly unnerving. The feeling that you're in an environment designed to be bustling with people, and yet the place is left desolate and eerie. This ties back into my point from the previous segment of the script. When environments are taken out of their context, it makes them surreal and dreamlike, and maybe even nightmarish. Liminality, whether intentional or not, is prevalent in modern day gaming. Horror games utilize liminality in ways that we haven't even considered. It's likely the majority of people haven't even thought about how scary and surreal something can be by simply removing it from its context and livelihood. With humans being such social creatures, it figures that the absence of people is such a terrifying concept. Liminality is emptiness, and emptiness is scarier than any amount of fungal zombies or haunted animatronics. Liminality is loneliness.